Hello and welcome to Silent Creativa. If you saw some of my previous videos, you may remember this girl. And I tried something with a wig I already had, but I wasn't completely sure because the bang part is quite thick, and so I cut all the hair off and gave it to this doll. That meant I had to make a new wig for her, and yeah, here you can already see it, and in this video I would like to show you a technique for making jewelry. It is the first time that I use it that much on a doll, but I really like it. I made some pendants that I will show you in the end of the video before I started the whole doll repainting thing. And yeah, I really like this technique, and I think I will try to make a complete outfit for one doll out of it. But to stay with this particular doll, I thought I would like to have a clip for the back of the hair, a hairband, and first I thought because she has this long side locks, a little bit like a too long Hema cut, I thought of one long strip of wire wrapped stuff to wrap it around it. That was too much. I used it later for a bracelet for this doll, so it was not a waste, but in the hair it would have been far too much. So the first thing was to measure how big everything has to be, and then I cut wire to size. The first thing I will do here is the hair pearl bracelet thing. In my head, I had this plan to have 3 different wires, 2 that are out of 0.8 millimeter thickness and 1 that is 1 millimeter thickness. And the wire that will be wrapped around it is, I think, 0.4 millimeter thickness. After doing some jewelry with that technique, I found that it's the easiest to use the 0.4 for the wrapping process. And yes, this technique is quite obviously called wire wrapping, because what you do is just wrap the thinner wire about the 2 thicker ones, or 3 thicker ones in this particular thing. Though I'm not as experienced with filming that close to my hands, my camera didn't want to focus and I'm mostly off camera. So sorry for that. What I did here was that I took the thin wire, let's call it binding wire for now, and wrapped it around the first of the 3 wires 5 times. And then I wrapped it around the first and the second together 2 times, and then the second and the third together 2 times, and then back. So then we had the first and the second one again 2 times, and 5 times around the base, the first wire again. And I repeated this step quite a lot until I had the length that I liked, and here you can see how it looked. And after I did this for the whole thing, I just took 2 of the wires, one of the thinner ones and the thicker one, and wrapped the thinnest wire around it, around both of them. And yeah, nearly at halfway through, I decided to go just with 1 wire from now on. And yeah, then I put a pearl on the end of 2 of them and just bend them into, yeah, kind of a swirl to have this as a finish for the clasp. I don't know how to call this thing. On this end, I had 3 wires to work with. On the other side, I had only one because I took the smaller wire, the 0.8 millimeter thickness, bend it in the middle, and just put the thicker one between these two. And so I had a longer end at the other side, but just one wire. And there I wrapped some thin wire around again and used some pearls while doing that to give the other side a nice end. And this is the moment where I have to say, be careful while doing that, because the wires are sharp and there is a potential that you hurt yourself. I did it 2 times in this video, which was quite successful because 2 times is not that much for me. And though I had 2 strands of hair from every side, I had to make 2 of these things. So I did. And though she has 2 arms, it's quite okay. Now there are 2 bracelets. You will see that later. And then I finally zoomed out, which was a great idea. For the clip, for the back of the hair, I took some of the thicker wire, the 1 millimeter thickness, and bend it into a square shape with 2 longer points in the middle of the upper part, because I wanted to bend them into some various shapes to get a little bit of a design onto the clip. And I used some separate wires to and twisted them into some swirls and made some decorations with that as well. And then I used one of the thinnest wires, so the 0.41 thickness, and twisted it around the point where the 2 parts meet each other, or the opening is of the 2 wires, and connected them with each other. And this wire I wrapped around the whole outside, and while doing that, I put it sometimes through the decorations that should be there to secure them in place. And in the end, I decorated this thing with some beads, and yeah, that was it. Yes, I bent it into a more round shape, but I did this when I was finished because it works quite well. You don't have to work in a strange position with this. The hairband is quite difficult to explain. I took out the 1 millimeter thickness wire and gave it 3 times the length of the hairband and left some more wire at the ends so that I have something that I can swirl around the main hairband later. And then I folded everything so that I had 3 wires laying to each other with the 1 mm thickness, and I took out the 0.8 mm thickness wire and cut a very long part of it, and then I wrapped the thinnest wire first around the 2 wires with 1 mm thickness, and then around the one with 0.8 mm thickness, twisted this, and repeated this. And later I used the second 0.4 mm wire for the leftover 1 mm wire to secure the loops that I made onto this wire. Just talking about it sounds quite complicated. I hope you understand what I mean. So for the pattern, how I wrapped this, I wrapped it 5 times around the first wire, and the first wire is always the one that is closest to you. For me, I work like this. So 5 times around the first wire, 2 times around the first and the second wire, 2 times around the second one and the third one. Then I formed a loop out of the third wire and wrapped the binding wire again around the third one and the second one, and then backwards again to the point where I wrapped it 5 times around the first wire. And when I had this row completed, I just used another 0.4 mm wire that I just wrapped around the last leftover wire and sometimes through the loops so that they are secured. Gosh, please let me know if this is understandable. It's quite difficult to explain. When you did this, it's totally easy and you understand it. But to explain it is, yeah. I learned most of the techniques for wire wrapping from YouTube too. And it's a lot of figuring out how to do it. But when you start it, your imagination is the limit, because you can do nearly everything with it when it comes to jewelry. I already made a complete crown out of it and a lot of pendants, so you really should give it a try because it's quite nice. Most of the work I did off camera because it's totally something that you can do while watching TV. And yeah, for the last part to finish off the hairband, I used the thinnest wire and wrapped it around one of the 2 wires at the end, and then just put it through some of the holes and the loops at the upper part of the hairband, secured it with the binding wire again, and yeah, then I used the second wire as it was and did the same. And in the end I secured everything with the rest of the binding wire. And then I just cut off any excess. The very last thing I had to do was making a pin that I could use with the hair clip. And for this I just took 3 wires, wrapped the thinnest wire, the binding wire, around it as I thought, and yeah, just finished it with some twisted ends, and yeah, that's it. As I already said, it's totally your imagination that counts on things like that. To get the things in place, I first took out a little bit of the hair from the front, secured the hairband at the back of the head, and then just take out the clip, made a ponytail, and yeah, I used a rubber band first and secured the clip, made put the pin through and twisted the ends again, and then it was time to remove the rubber band again. And yeah, then I tried to get these 2 front things to work, and that was a disaster. So I put them aside and just used them as um, bracelets, as I told you. So everything was used, and I'm fine with it. She is quite adorable, I think. Now, just to show you some options, I will show you the pendants I made, or some of them, to give you an idea how much you can do with the wire wrapping part. And I'm a beginner in this, so the more you make, the more inspired you are by this. I started with one of these pendants, and yeah, in the end I tried some other things. I made already one pendant that you see now for a doll. This was very tricky because it's so small, but you have a lot of options and ways to do this. And I think it's quite a cheap way to get a really cool effect. You have to make sure that you have the time for it because it's time consuming. But I really like this kind of jewelry. And here you see the final result of the doll. I call her Aliena, and though she is more or less the twin sister of the medieval doll I made, which name is Gwendolyn, I just had to make some pictures of them two together. So I hope you liked this video, and if you do some wire wrapping, please show me. I would really like to see with what you come up. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a nice time, and until next time, bye.